for January 5th, 2024. It is our first Ask Philip of the new year. So welcome back, everyone. Hope you're off to a great start. We're going to dive right in first with some announcements. Today, a new episode of the podcast is out, of course, because new episodes come out every Tuesday and Friday, and then smaller mini episodes on other days of the week. But the episode out today is with a returning guest, Karen Martell of the Hormone Solution podcast, right? Because she renamed it. And this one's all about testosterone, a very specific subject that I think is really important for men and women, but it doesn't get talked as much about for women. And Karen goes pretty much through everything, soup to nuts. I tried to get to all the topics there. So highly relevant. Check that out. And the best thing you could do for me as always, and for the show, is spread the word, share an episode, and rate and review. So if the easiest thing is to just share it with somebody, just say, hey, have you heard this podcast? Send them the Apple link or whatever platform you use. But if you want to go the extra mile, post a screenshot on social media, tag me at Wits and Weights. I absolutely love ratings and reviews as well on Apple. They really help people find the show as well. So that's today. That just came out today. Another announcement. Carol joined the team this week. So applaud, hands raised to her. I posted I'm losing my words here, but I posted a post welcoming her to the team earlier. And so you've probably seen posts from her, and you're going to see more to come because she, along with Alan, are going to be involved with me on some of the activities going forward. And one of those will be our next challenge, which will be sometime in the late winter, early spring. I can't do these back to back. They do take a lot of work, but they're going to be a lot of fun. And the goal of the challenge is always to help you in some way beyond what's possible with just the community, to get you some accountability and support. That's really what the challenge is for. It's kind of that middle ground between just consuming information and then starting to take action before, for example, you might pursue something like group coaching or one-on-one coaching program. And so the challenge is really to get you kickstarted there on something. So Carol asked about the next challenge, and overwhelmingly 25 votes so far, well over 3/4 said, let's do fat loss and lifting, right? Which kind of makes sense. And that's the one where people can start to see that transformation. So, we're going to do it the right way. It's going to be the best challenge we've ever had. It's going to have some new features to it. I can't really say any details now because we're just working on it. It might even align a little bit with my own fat loss journey. So that's not that matters to you, but it could be a fun way to kind of compare notes. Anyway, if you want to vote on the poll, if you have a strong preference with anything else, please do. But it looks like overwhelmingly we're looking at the first option. So that's going to be exciting. And then let's see. I don't think. Yeah. So, okay. So I'm going to unpin last week's Ask Philip. I'm going to dive into today's. We have two really good questions. So I'm very excited here to answer those. So the Ask Philip thread, just for those new, or even if you need a refresher real quick, is a way for you to ask a specific question and get it answered, a question to get unstuck, whether you're facing challenges with your training, your nutrition, your macros, fat loss, building muscle, mindset, all of the things that we talk about here to help you improve how you look and feel, your physique, to look like you lift, to have more energy, to be more confident, all of that. You can ask here. This is a specific question. So if you have a more generic question, you can post it in the group. You can send it to me. You can, sometimes I will solicit questions for Q&A episodes on the podcast. There's lots of ways to ask a more generic question, and you can just post that anytime in the group and you'll get an answer from lots of people, including myself. But this is more of a specific question for you with all of your context and all of your details that wouldn't necessarily be answered by a generic answer. All right. So the first question is by Lyric Turner, and lyrics. Let me see here. Yeah. So I did a quick reply, but I'm going to go through it all and it's in detail here. The first question is, all right, let's do this. The first question from Lyric is, hey, Philip, thanks for taking my question. Let me think. I'm not sure exactly what it is, other than I feel like something I'm doing is stalled out potentially. Okay, very common, right? Having some sort of plateau. We deal with that all the time. So let's look into the details here. I am 46-year-old mom and have been weight training since May 2022. Congrats. That's now, what, a year and a half? Focused on body recomp with at least one muscle building phase last spring. I've never done a fat loss phase. I have slowly but steadily put on muscle and lost body fat, down about 7 pounds on the scale over the year and a half. Now that's interesting, right? Because when you say you've never done a fat loss phase, but kind of have been in a slow fat loss phase, like a slow deficit, and I'm down to around 22% body fat now. Big caveat, right? As I always say, like there's really no way to tell your body fat percentage accurately, no matter what device or method you use. So, I'm not going to say when you say 22% and then my goal is to get to 18%. My first recommendation before even reading your question is, if you're going to think about body fat at all, focus on the trend using something like the Navy formula or calipers. Don't use a Renpo scale or a body impedance device or an InBody or any of that. The trend is okay on that. What I'd rather you go by is how you look and feel, how your clothes fit, how you're performing, your energy, your confidence in your body, all those kinds of things, because nobody cares what body fat percentage you are. And we can't really know what it is, right? So I'm not trying to be, dismissive in any means. I'm trying to help you get to using very objective, measurable outcomes, and body fat tends to not be one of those as we move forward. So all good though. I get what you're trying to do, right? We're trying to lose body fat. So let's keep going. Question continues. I've loved weight training and getting stronger, and I've also loved stepping away from restrictive diets and the requisite binging that accompanied them, and the fasting that I'd done in the past. Awesome. My macros have fluctuated a bit over time, but I'm currently doing 140 grams protein, 230 grams carbs, and 49 grams fat. So that sounds a totally reasonable balance for a lot of people because you've got plenty of protein. You didn't say what your weight is, but I'm going to assume kind of average size female, maybe 130, 150, 160, kind of in that range. So 140 is probably around 0.8 to 1 grams per pound of protein. The 49 grams of fat is probably, I'm going to guess, 20% or so of your calories, and then 230 grams of carbs makes up the difference. I think this is probably right about at maintenance, maybe a little bit of deficit since I'm very, very, very slowly dropping the weight. Agree. You are probably in a deficit. Where I'm feeling stuck is that my arms constantly feel sore and inflamed, and I feel stiff and creaky, and it's starting to make me dread upper body days. This has been going on for a few months. I've actually backed off training these last few weeks, dropping down to just 2 days a week of training and sometimes even only doing one set of everything. I typically do 2 heavy sets of everything in the 6 to 8 rep range because I just feel inflamed and weak. I haven't been able to do anything related to my biceps in months. I just skipped those exercises entirely. It has crossed my mind, maybe I need to increase calories to help with recovery, but I'm going to be going on vacation, use that as my motivation to stay strict with my food tracking and weights, and I don't want to gain weight right now. Okay, so let's see. I was doing 160 grams protein, 270 grams carbs, 49 grams fat until a few weeks ago, but I dropped down when I backed off training. This may have been a slight deficit as I was still slowly losing during that time, but I'm not sure. Anyway, would love another set of eyes on this. I guess I'm feeling a little aimless at the moment and a little frustrated by this recovery issue and would love to refocus. Now, I've got a lot of really solid thoughts on this because I think a lot of people listening can relate to this, 100%. The idea of feeling like the energy's not there, feeling sore, not sure if you've been in a deficit or not, energy, those kinds of things. We're going to address that. I did follow up in the thread and I said, what are you using to track? And you said, I'm using an app that is proprietary to the coaching program I'm doing because that way my coach can see and adjust my macros on her end. My coaching program ends in February and I'm not renewing. I think it's time to venture out on my own finally. So I'm definitely going to look into Macro Factor to track it for my program ends. And then I said, got it, and love that you knew exactly where I was going, because anyone who listens to my show or follows us here in the community knows that I recommend Macro Factor as the one and only food logging app that everyone should use, only because it's the only one that adapts to your metabolism. And so I would just start tracking that right away, even though you're using another app. Just start getting used to it and setting it up and at least getting the data in there. So that you have that information, because you shouldn't have to have a coach adjust your macros. Honestly, nowadays, like any nutrition coach listening or wanting to get into the business, if they are tracking your macros for you, honestly, that is a non-value added activity. I would prefer that something like Macro Factor, which can see your metabolism, adjust the macros, but that the plan and your goals and your strategy are what you work on your coach with. So I know you said you're not going to be doing working with the coach anymore, and that's awesome because you've probably developed some of that skill set. But going forward, if you ever do work with a coach like me, we would take a higher level approach in terms of personalizing this to you and dealing with some of these issues like the soreness. But I'm going to try to answer your question here anyway. So here we go. First of all, the given your training intensity, right? And given that you've had this frustration now for a while, it sounds like you're not enjoying working out. Like you're not looking forward to it. And we don't want that. So it sounds like an energy issue. Absolutely. You alluded to that 3 or 4 times in your response. The idea that not only are you in a deficit, but you get this constant soreness and pain. So right there, right away, my suggestion would be come out of that deficit altogether and go to maintenance. Even more, I would suggest going to what I call the top side of maintenance, which means if you're using macro factor, you would be slightly overshooting your maintenance, or you would even set it to a very, very tiny gain. And the reason for that is to allow you to recover as quickly as possible. We don't need to reverse out of it. You just want to recover as quickly as possible. I suspect if you do that and do it by increasing carbs, because you already get plenty of protein, and honestly, actually, I'm going to take that back. Increase some fats and carbs. I know you've got 50 grams of fat. I suspect that represents something like 20% or less of your calories. Try bumping that up to about 30% of your calories and eating more fat as well. I'd be curious to see how you respond to that. But regardless, as long as the calories come up to over maintenance, I think you're going to see a big recovery in your energy. And it might not happen instantly, like in the next session or two, although it might. But very quickly, you should not feel this soreness anymore and be able to go back to the volume you were doing before, assuming there's not something else going on, right? Like an autoimmune condition or something else that's affecting you. I would also look at sleep and stress. If those are all good, we can rule those out, right? Like if you're just not getting enough sleep. But what's the other thing I was going to say about energy? I'm kind of losing track of my thought here. Okay. So we talked about rest and recovery, training volume, intensity, hydration, electrolyte supplementation. If all of that is good, then I seriously think it's an energy concern here. And you said you don't want to gain weight. What I think is happening is you're losing weight, but even if you weren't losing weight and you were maintaining, chances are you still could be in an energy, a low energy state, even while maintaining your weight. So a lot of people don't realize this, but your metabolism is highly adaptive, right? And there's this kind of tolerance around your maintenance where if you were under eating, but not enough to lose weight, and again, you are losing weight, so you are definitely in a deficit. But a lot of people are listening to this and like, I don't have energy, I'm getting sore, I don't know what's going on, but I'm not losing weight. You could be in a suppressed state, right? Where your metabolism is suppressed because you are slightly under eating, but not enough to lose weight, or you're under eating most of the time and then you overconsume some days and it kind of evens out to maintenance, but overall you're lacking energy. So that's one, bringing the calories up. The second thing is, this is what I had forgotten a few minutes ago, is the timing around your workouts. So are you fasted training? That's one question I would ask. Are you training fasted? Because if you are, stop doing that. Start eating before you work out. At a minimum, a banana and a whey protein shake half an hour before. But if you have like an hour or two before you work out, you can have any sort of balanced meal that has proteins and carbs. I would limit the fat in that meal just because fat will slow down digestion. And you want a lot of carbs around your workout. So for you, 270 grams of carbs, I would have at least 100 grams of those carbs around your workout. So I think that's the long and short of it, is getting more energy and workout timing, and listen to your body, right? Like if your body is telling you that it can't produce, it can't perform, we have to look at the energy needs, and we can also look at the training. So what I want you to do, Lyric, is if you take my advice, let us know here, respond to this video or post in the group that you upped your calories, that included both fat and carb increases, and that you are having peri-workout carbs. That's the main thing. Peri-workout nutrition, carbs and protein, but mainly the carbs. And let us know if that changes anything, and we can go from there. Okay, so I think I answered your question. Then we're going to go to Chrissy-Ann. She asks, as a beginner, I'm fairly aggressively adding weight to every exercise. I understand this causes hypertrophy, will there come a time when I can maintain the weight to maintain the level of muscle? Or do the muscles adapt and you start to lose muscle unless you keep adding weight? Oh, this is so good. I love this question. So, fairly aggressively adding weights. Um, I love that, right? That's good. If we use more, we reframe that, make it a little more objective. I would say you want to be adding weights at just the right amount to cause you to gain strength and adapt so that you can lift more next time. Because two things. First of all, some people are not training hard enough, right? And then they don't progress and they stall. They need to be more aggressive. They need to train harder. Others might try to jump too much and then they start to fail reps and then they get frustrated because they keep getting stalled, even though they are trying to increase the weight, right? So aggressive is a relative thing. And that I'm just pointing that out in general for the answer for those watching, that the jump in weight from session to session should be sufficient to cause adaptation. That's what okay. Anyway, I love what you're doing. And I know you got into this recently and are, really in a learning phase. So that's awesome and very motivating, hopefully for you and lots of other people. Muscle maintenance is actually an amazing thing because I've seen everything from 1/3 of the amount of effort required to maintain muscle to 1/8. In other words, whatever it took to build muscle, it should take around a quarter of that effort to maintain it. So if you were just to just use a simple formula, you could say, well, if I go to the gym 4 days a week now, I could go to the gym 1 day a week to maintain my muscle. Now that's kind of an oversimplification because it might not be like the days per week so much as the volume, right? Like if you go 4 days per week now for an hour, maybe it's 2 days a week for a half hour, like just much less volume, and you can maintain your weight. There's a paper. Well, there are many papers about this. You can look them up. I found one of them from Bickel et al. In 2011, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but they looked at age as one of the factors, but they also looked at training volume, and they looked at everything between 1/3 and 1/9 of the volume. And I think if you go through this, the general consensus is that 1/3 of the volume is sufficient at any age. And if you're younger, you can get away with even less volume to maintain your weight. So for you, I would say you've got a lot going for you in terms of age, in that you're not just going to lose all your muscle if you lower the volume. So the question is, why did you ask this question, right? Are you worried about what happens when the weights get really heavy and it's hard to push the weight up? In that case, you're probably coming at the end of the newbie or the novice phase and ready for an intermediate program, in which case you're not adding weight to every exercise, every session necessarily. You might be adding weight to every exercise once a week, which might be every session you do the exercise, but you're going to reduce the frequency of those exercises. So if you're squatting 3 days a week now and going up every session, you might reduce that to twice a week and then eventually to once a week, right? And even more advanced programming, it might be once a week, but you don't necessarily go up in weight every week. You go up in reps, right? Or you go up in sets, and then eventually you go up in weight and you cycle. So that's getting into advanced programming principles. But the idea is you could be training for 40 years, and in that 40th year, you are still progressing in some way. Now, at some point, age kind of catches up to you, and it starts to, I don't want to say it regresses, but you start to focus on a new types of PRs and new types of progression, like the effort with which you're training and trying different movements, and then different, you might focus on strength and PRs in one cycle, but then you focus on building your physique in another, or maybe you're in a cut and you just want to lose fat and maintain your muscle, right? So if you're a beginner, you are years and years and years away from your genetic potential. And honestly, you don't even have to worry about maintaining, or losing. Like it should be fairly easy for you to progress and build muscle. It's just having the right programming and realizing it's not as simple as go up and weight every session once you get 6, 9, 12 months out from your beginner journey. Okay, Chrissy. So if you have more questions about that, post below, reach out to me. I know we've already been in touch, and I think you have a trainer and you're going on your own, but we're here to support you in whatever way we can. Okay, that's it. As usual, I went a little bit long, but hopefully it was helpful. It ends up being kind of like a podcast episode. And speaking of, some of these questions you will hear on the Saturday weekend Q&A episodes that are starting up this Saturday. So if you didn't get enough wits and weights, there's yet one more that's going to drop in your feed on Saturdays. So we've got the Tuesday and Friday episodes, where Fridays are sometimes guest interviews, but there'll be more solo episodes. Tuesday is a solo. You've got Quick Wits on Monday and Thursday, which, by the way, we started the Lifting for Muscle series on Thursdays this week. And then now we've got weekend Q&A on Saturdays. So more than enough. Definitely follow or subscribe in your app so you get those. If you don't want to listen to an episode, you can always delete it, but it definitely helps us and helps the algorithm for people finding the show. If you do, subscribe and follow to the show. All right, that is it for this week's Ask Philip. Another week in the books. The new Ask Philip will be posted sometime late this afternoon by Mr. Alan Friedman. So go in and post your questions. You have until next Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern, to ask new questions, and then I will answer those on next Friday's live.